Hello everyone and welcome back to GPTReact30. So in this next part, we are going to again use React Query, which we had used in the first part. But in this tutorial, we are going to see paginated API. That is, we are going to use an API where there is a next page. So there will be a list of things that will be fetched and then will be a next page. So we will see a pagination based API and we'll see how to fetch it using React Query and populate those areas. Because this is a common example where when you use social media or when you use any kind of product listing website, you see that let's just say 10 records are first fetched, like 10 first users are shown to, or 10 first products are shown to the user. And once you click on next, then the next page set of users or products are shown. Same happens with Google search. So if you search anything on Google, you get the list of results, then you click on next page, then you go to the next page results, so on and so forth. So we are going to see how to use that pagination based API calls using React Query. And today we are going to use Rick and Morty API. So Rick and Morty is an API where you get a list of characters like this. And we are going to show it in the form of a list like this. So a simple list, nothing fancy. So it will be a list of elements. You can increase the card view and such. And when you click on load more, the next set of characters will be loaded and they will be shown to the end user like this. So we'll keep on populating the list and we'll keep on adding those pages here. So that's the end goal. And this is what the API looks like. So this is the page one of the API. So you have the info where you have the count, the pages, total number of pages that are present. The next page that we want to fetch is here. So page equal to 2. And this is the current page where we have the list of results where there are in total, I think, 10 results like first, second, third, fourth, and last set of characters. We have the name, species, and other stuff which we will show in the card element. So that's the overall goal. And with that in mind, let's start off with the tutorial for the day. So we are going to use Stagblitz to set up our environment. So create an account on Stagblitz. Go to the dashboard, select a new React JavaScript project, and this is what you will be shown. Then once the environment is booted up, click on New Terminal. And we are taking help of ChatGPT here as well. So this is what it looks like. So this is the prompt which I initially used. Let me just go to the first prompt, which is this prompt. Then I switched to it into a better prompt like this, and that is how it goes. So I have made a few changes. So we are going to use this prompt to this set of code to set up our project. First, we will install React Query and Axios. Axios is basically used to fetch the data. React Query is used to manage the data fetching easily. So we'll install React Query and Axios into our project. In the SRC, we will create a new components folder. So components. Then in the components, we'll create a character list. So character list dot JSX. Now within the character list, we will add the code one by one. So first is the component itself. So we'll first use import React from React, and then we'll use useInfiniteQuery. So let's copy and paste it here, and let's understand what is useInfiniteQuery. So if you go to the React Query docs, so this is the official React Query docs. We are using version 3. And if you go to the useInfiniteQuery, so this is what the useInfiniteQuery looks like. Basically, useInfiniteQuery is used to fetch data page by page. Instead of making or handling the API calls yourself, useInfiniteQuery gives you the function to fetch the calls automatically. You just have to pass the next page into it. So this is what it looks like. You get the useInfiniteQuery, you pass the query key. Then you have a function in which you pass the page param and then the fetch page and then other stuff. The most important here is the get next page param. So here you pass the next page param that you want, and these are all the results that you get. In our code, what we are doing is, let's just go to the code a little bit. So we are first creating a fetch characters function where we will take a page param. So basically page param is the number of page, current number of page. Initially it is set to 1. And let's just copy this code, which is import Axios from Axios into our environment. And then we'll create a fetch characters functions. This is basically a get request using Axios. So if you are well versed with Axios, you know that Axios is used to fetch the data. We are using the get request. We are passing the URL, and this is the response that we will receive. And within that response, we will return the res.data. So basically, this data that you want is present in the data object. So this is the fetch characters function, and then we will proceed ahead. Then we have the character card. Let's not focus on character card right now. We will focus on it in some time. have const my component. So let's just copy that. Now instead of my component, we are going to use character list. So let's add that. We will close the bracket and we have a const character. The next thing that we are going to do is we are going to use infinite query, which is the most important part. So let's copy that code. So this is the use infinite query. We are passing a query key. Query key is basically a unique key similar to what React keys does. It is a unique key for each query that you have. So you might have multiple queries. So this is the query key by which you can identify, okay, this was the query for characters list. Then you have the fetch characters function. So this is the fetch function that you pass. So this will tell the React query how are you are fetching the characters. So this is the query function basically. So query function is basically to fetch the characters. Next is the get next page param, which is the most important. So what we are doing is we are taking the entire data that you have. So last page data that you have, complete data that is present. We are passing it as a param. I'm just going to log this. We are going to see this in some time. So let's go with console.log. And let's add a last page, comma, and last page param. So copy this, add it into our code. You will see this in some time. Then from the URL, you are taking info.next. So basically in the info, you have the next param which contains the actual URL, but we don't need the URL. We just need this number, which is 2. This is in the query format. So we need to parse the query string. So for that, we are using new URL. So URL is a built-in JavaScript uh, object. So URL in JavaScript with search params. So search params is an MDN property which will return the query key. For example, let's just say if you have an URL like this, and from this query key, so this you want age. So you will get it using search params dot get name. If you search for name, then you will get the name Jonathan Smith, which is present in here. So this is the query. And if you search for age, then age will be returned by search params dot get age. So we are using the same syntax. We are first parsing the URL using new URL. Then we are taking the URL using search params, similar to how you are doing a new URL. Then in the search params, you are getting the page param. In the page param, you have the value 2, which is of interest to us. And we are returning it as the page param to fetch the next page. So that is the infinite query syntax. Now next thing is status. So status is the param which is written by React query to tell you, okay, what is the current status of the query fetching. So if it is loading, then the query is being loaded. At that time, we are showing loading. If there is an error, then we'll show error occurred. So let's copy this and add it into our code. So this is the status. Next thing is the actual code. So let's copy the return statement and add it into our code as well. Now we have a div with class character grid and there is a pages. So data.pages. So the data is returned by React query itself. So it will return all the pages. So the array that you have, the single array, this is mapped into a pages format. So if you go to the React query, infinite query, you will see that the data consists of the pages, which consist of the pages. You will also see the status here if you want. Now that pages is then mapped and then we are showing it in the form of a character. Now it is time for the character card component. So let's copy the character card component into our code. So character card component is basically all the details that we fetch from the API. They are shown in the form of UI. Let's go over it line by line. Let's paste it here. So character card first contains the character.image. So character is basically data.pages.map the page, and in the page we are the results that you have. So basically in this results, you have the image location. So image that is present, that is being shown to the end user. Then the other details. So in case of other details, you have the status, then species, gender, and location. So let's save that. So we have the character card. Then there is a next page. So on click, what we do is we call the fetch next page method from React Query. So basically, this is the method which is used to get the next page or call the next page from the React Query syntax. So on click, you have the fetch next page. You search for it. It is present from React Query. So if you go to the docs, you will see the fetch next page. So fetch next page is a function which allows you to fetch the next page of results. So you have to invoke that. So on button click, we are invoking the fetch next page method. This will internally call next page. The get next page param, pass the param to the fetch function which is defined here with the page param 2, and the next page will be called. So that is the overall syntax of how it works. Then if it is fetching, then we will is fetching next page is the param which is telling you whether the next page is being fetched, and then we show the load, and has next page is the again another param in React Query. So if you go to the useInfiniteQuery docs, you will find the data. It will tell whether the next page is present or not. So after you get all the 40 pages, the list will get exhausted and as next page will return to false. So that's the as next page. Then we will show no more page. So that's the overall syntax. Let's export the component next. So this is the my component. Then we will have export default. So let's add it into our code. Now, this is a little advanced tutorial, but GPT React 30 is more towards the advanced usage of query libraries. So we are covering this in this tutorial. Then we'll take the character list. So this is the export default and we are done with the character list. Next thing that we need to do is we need to copy some CSS. So let's copy the CSS from here and go to the app.css and replace everything with our code. So basically you have some styling on the character card, then the character grid that you just saw. So you can change the grid layout to fill out like 2 by 2 or 3 by 3, whatever you want. You can experiment with that. I'm not covering that right now because I've covered that in previous tutorials. So yeah. Then you have the character card over, you transform then the IMG field details and other stuff. Then some load more button has some styling. And yeah, that's the overall CSS. Next thing that we need to do is we need to pass on a query client provider, and we are going to focus on app.js. So we'll first import query client and query client provider from React Query. These are basically the wrapper components which are needed to allow React Query to function properly. So these are the core components which are needed, like the higher order components. For example, in Redux, you have your own provider. Similarly, query client provider is a provider from React Query. So we go to the app.jsx next, and we will add it here. So query client provider and query client. Then we'll modify the syntax a little bit. We'll first create a query client using query client is equal to new query client. Now this is mentioned in the docs. I have covered this in the part 1 of the GPT React 30. And if you want, you can search here as well. If you search for query client. So yeah. So query client provider is the component like this syntax, which allows you to have the client and you can perform a lot of functions from it. So query client and query client provider. So let's remove all the boilerplate code. We don't need this. Then we'll close the query client provider. Hit save. Then we'll import the card component which we had. Let us remove this as well. And we don't need these elements here. Then we will import character list from dot slash components slash character list. By this time, I think this should be fresh. Yeah, this is better. Then we'll add the component here, and that is done. Now let's hit refresh and see. So let's go into the console using control tab. Yeah, as you can see, we have the API ready. And if you go to the console, yeah, so this is the last page which we had logged in into a character list, if you remember. So if you go here, so this is the last page, and last page consists of the entire object. From this, we are taking the info dot next, and then we are showing the next page. So if you go to the, if you log the next page here in console dot log, then you will see the next page as true. Similarly, if you go to data dot pages and if you log that as well, let's just log that using console dot log. It's saved. So data dot pages currently consists of one array, which is has a list of 20 characters. Now, if I click on load more, the next page params will be first, and as you can see, the next page has been updated to 3 because the third page needs to be imported. But more importantly, if you see the data dot pages now, it has two array elements, and each has a 20 character. So totally we have 40 elements. Now, if I go to load more again, let's clear this, and as you can see, we have 3 characters. So basically, the next page and the data dot pages keep on getting updated. And if you go to the network, see there is a character page is equal to 3. Then if you search for character, um, let me just copy the API itself. So we have a better, yeah, API slash character slash page. So as you can see, we have the page 1, then page 2, and that's with finally page 3. These are also from cache, so don't worry about extra API calls. React query handles them. They are just shown because internally it is not been shown. So basically, this is how the API calls work in React query, and you can have a page integrated API and you can fetch the data. Now, the next thing that you can do is obviously you can have a 2 by 2 or 3 by 3 grid elements. So that is basically CSS stuff. We are not focusing on that right now. So this was a simple and short API on how to use infinite query from React query to fetch paginated data and show it into our code. Now, one more thing. So currently I'm using version 3 of React query. Now version 5 has some changes, not much, but there are some changes. I use version 3 because ChatGPT gave the code in version 3, nothing more other than that. But in the future parts, I will try to see if we can cover version 5 as well. There are minor changes, not much, but with each library version, there are some minor changes in the code. So yeah, that was the simple short tutorial on how to use React Query for page-integrated API results. Hope you found this tutorial useful. And if you have any doubts or feedback, mention them in the comments. Please like this video if you found this video useful. And subscribe to the channel for more such content in the future because this series is going to continue. And I'm going to add a lot more parts in this series. So subscribe to get more such content in the future. That's it from my end for today. Thank you. Have a nice day. Goodbye.